Hello, I'm Horace Douty, and each Thursday I bring you a local history lesson by way of YouTube. And I encourage you, if you enjoy these lessons, please click on like and subscribe, and then click on the little bell icon, and you will be notified when the lesson is up. And I encourage you also to share this presentation with your friends and your family and your neighbors. I appreciate that. Today, the local history lesson is entitled, Who Was Chief Cornstalk? When our beautiful valley in Virginia was becoming home to our ancestors, Indians did not live here. The land had large prairies, having burned each autumn in order to encourage buffalo herds. To the Scot-Irish, this looked like God's gift, a fertile farming area free for the taking, but Indians perceived the rich valley as their happy hunting ground. Some Indians saw the stream of settlers as an invasion that must be stopped. One of these was the great Emperor Pontiac, chief of the Ottawas, a young man who was born around 1720, took Chief Pontiac as his own role model. The young Indian's name was Cornstalk, which in Indian means blade of corn. And the settlers had difficulty with pronunciation, so they called him Cornstalk, and the nickname has stuck to this day. Cornstalk rose in prominence to become a Shawnee chief. He was famous for his strength, his size, his good looks, his bravery, and his eloquence. Although he was beloved by his own people, Cornstalk proved to be a terrible menace to the settlers. He is believed to be responsible for many of the raids that killed settlers off so steadily as to threaten the total annihilation of the whites. Settlements in Greenbrier, Carr's Creek, Abbs Valley were virtually wiped out. By 1774, Chief Cornstalk had put together a confederation of tribes producing the mightiest Indian armed force ever seen on our continent. The Virginia militia finally confronted Cornstalk's army at Point Pleasant, where the Ohio and Kanawha River merged. The Indians were defeated, but at great cost to our army. More than 70 Virginia soldiers are buried there, most of them from right here in the Valley of Virginia. In 1777, at the same strategic location, history was about to be repeated. Both sides had mustered impressive forces. Cornstalk realized the stakes and offered to negotiate, maybe in good faith, maybe as a trap, we don't know. But when during the parley, an attack on some whites left one dead, the militia from this area had had more than enough. They swiftly executed Cornstalk, along with his son and 2 other Indian leaders. And by this time in our history, war with Great Britain had been underway for 2 years. The British and others used Cornstalk's execution to portray Americans as savage intruders who should be driven out or annihilated or subdued. The issues are complicated. Who was right? Who was wrong? That was being debated while the Revolutionary War was going on right here in Virginia. And through the ages and up to the present, the answers vary. As always, some perceive America as a relentless aggressor, even as the great Satan. Others view our nation as noble, generous, blessed by God. Obviously, you have a choice. You can choose which attitude you want to take. You can choose which to believe, whether you're considering the war in Ukraine today or the character of Chief Cornstalk. The Shawnee chief is buried at Point Pleasant West Virginia, in Douty Park. A stone monument marks his grave. Most of our American patriots are buried without surviving markers. We have quite a number of those right here in our own area. One of those unmarked graves belongs to Captain James Hall, leader of the militia at Point Pleasant. And again in 1777, he lived right here. However, a bronze tablet was set on a large stone in the Oxford Church Cemetery, memorializing Captain James Hall. After his trial and acquittal for his involvement in Cornstalk's death, Hall was commissioned again as an officer in the Revolutionary War, serving under General John Bowyer right here, Lexington, Virginia, in Thornhill. And his final years were spent peacefully, farming the lovely fields near Oxford Church. Other soldiers grew old beside him. One of them was his brave brother-in-law, the Reverend Samuel Houston, who preached in what was then a stone church at Oxford. No doubt they sat together, companionably, remembering wars before the fireplace in Hall's house on many long winter evenings, and perhaps the conversation occasionally brought forth the name of an Indian chief, Cornstalk, whose ghost was always hovering near. And I would like to ask James Hall, do you regret what you did, or are you glad?